In a joint statement issued last night by the International Monetary Fund's Senior Mission Chief for Sri Lanka, Peter Bro, and Deputy Mission Chief Katsiarina Sviridzenka, the mission stated that the IMF team reached a staff-level agreement with the Sri Lankan authorities on the first review under an economic reform program supported by a 48-month extended funding facility arrangement, following constructive discussions with the authorities in Colombo and during the World Bank IMF annual meetings in Marrakesh in Morocco. The statement noted that once the staff-level agreement, which is expected to be considered by the IMF management and the IMF executive board in the period ahead, is approved, it would have access to about $330 million, bringing the total IMF financial support disbursed under the arrangement to about $660 million. Addressing a media briefing this morning, the IMF mission for Sri Lanka commented on the performance of Sri Lanka under the program and the way forward to unlock the second tranche.
The ambitious reform agenda is starting to bear fruit with rapid disinflation and fiscal revenue rising from very low levels. Program performance at end June was satisfactory. All quantitative performance criteria were met, except on expenditure areas, and all indicative targets were also met, except on tax revenues. Most structural benchmarks were either met or met with delay. Notably, the authorities published on time the Governance Diagnostic Report, making Sri Lanka the first country in Asia to do so. The economy is showing tentative signs of stabilization, but growth momentum remains subdued and economic recovery is not yet assured. Sri Lanka's external position weakened as a result of several factors, including slow progress on debt restructuring, and reserve accumulation slowed in recent months. Agreeing on debt treatments consistent with restoring debt sustainability quickly will be key to resolving uncertainty that is constraining Sri Lankan businesses and external financing. Sustaining the reform momentum is needed to achieve stable and inclusive economic recovery. We welcome the authorities' commitment to increase revenues, improve governance and tax administration, and actively eliminate evasion. Cost recovery in energy pricing helps mitigate fiscal risks from state-owned enterprises. Further strengthening the social safety net is critical to protect the poor and the vulnerable. While inflation decelerated, continued monitoring is needed to anchor expectations. Rebuilding external buffers through strong reserves accumulation remains an important objective of the program. We also welcome the authorities' commitment to implement key recommendations of the Governance Diagnostic Report. Concrete steps towards addressing corruption risks and strengthening accountability will build confidence and make growth more robust and inclusive. Following the domestic debt operation, the critical next step is to secure an agreement with official creditors on a debt treatment consistent with program parameters and debt targets. We took note of a tentative agreement between Sri Lanka and the Export-Import Bank of China and will analyze the details when we receive them. We urge all official creditors to move forward and agree on an appropriate debt treatment in line with the financing assurances they provided.
When is the staff agreement is expected to be taken up by the IMF Executive Board for consideration, for approval?
Two things need to happen before we can present the staff report to the Executive Board. The first is the implementation by the authorities of the prior actions that have been agreed in line with the objectives of the program. And then the second is the completion of the so-called financing assurances reviews, which includes confirming whether adequate progress has been made with debt restructuring to give confidence that this restructuring will be concluded in a timely manner and also in line with the program's debt targets.
Could you give us some idea about the prior actions that we had to do and also whether the budget is a prior action?
The conditionality focuses on achieving the objectives of the program, including raising revenues and mitigating fiscal risks and ensuring strong governance reforms and safeguarding financial stability. So really there are no surprises there. And just like approximately 12 months ago, we are of course looking for a strong budget that can achieve that, with of course the objective being that the gap between expenditures and revenues needs to be narrowed so that Sri Lanka can once again find creditors who are willing to finance the remaining gap.